Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. The website at www.allamericangold.com. Remember when you used to have to say that? www. Matter of fact, man, after that speech last night, bring back W. Holy cow. I didn't make it to the end. Full disclosure, I didn't make it to the very end. I just couldn't take it anymore. Maybe the worst State of the Union speech I've ever heard. I wasn't old enough to hear Jimmy Carter and his State of the Union speeches, but I could only imagine they were as bad and as pathetic as the one we heard last night, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I was reminded a lot of whoever did the speech writing. I think might have been a holdover from Obama, because a lot of it was like the Obama speeches, because Obama came in. Bush had already given a bunch of money to try to fix the financial collapse, and then, of course, Obama came in, put a bunch of more money on the table, and then you had the years of the so-called recovery of almost no recovery every year, and he always had to come out every year with no recovery and just say, oh, well, I'm going to give money to everybody, money for you and money for you and money for you, and that's what I heard. He definitely wanted to sidestep anything controversial except for let's go blow some stuff up. That was the only kind of, he loved it. He loved that one strength part at the beginning, Joe, where he could say, let's go blow those guys up. That was the only time he was strong, and everything else was I'm Santa Claus, right?
Well, it was absolutely ridiculous, and it was so, outside of, and you're right, outside of the first, Russia's the bad guy, which, if that's what you want to believe, okay, right? And again, all of this could have been prevented, should have been prevented. It was deliberately not prevented. I don't know why. And again, I've been saying this from the very, very beginning. Ukraine was a poor, corrupt country. Always has been. Matter of fact, up until, 30 days ago, what was Ukraine known for? Well, it was known for hackers. A lot of the black market crypto runs through Ukraine. Now, the president didn't talk about that. And weapons dealer. I mean, that's kind of what they were. I mean, even the Ukrainian people, which, by the way, at least from the mainstream outlets that, are feeding us our information, man, I got a lot of love for the Ukrainian people. I really do. Because they truly want freedom and are willing to die for it, and something that I think here a lot of people in America like the thought of it, but aren't actually willing to do it. But having said that, even they know they voted a guy in that let's face it, he was a comedian. He played a president on TV once, right? They're like, hey, he's better than these other crooked politicians, right? So, but outside of that, right? The rest of the speech was absolute garbage and nonsense. My best one, when he was talking about inflation, and he really steered clear, didn't warn Americans. You guys have no idea. I mean, if you listen here, you know. I know people in Phoenix, if you pay attention to gas prices, you notice gas prices went up again today. Now here in Arizona, right, cheap gas probably is in the 390s. There may be a station or two in the high 380s, but it's 390s, and a lot of places now at $4 plus. That has nothing to do with what's happened in the last 3 or 4 days. That was from oil going from $93 to just under $100. Today, by the way, oil at one point hit $112. Just be ready. right? We're going to be seeing gas prices, $4.50. California is going to be $6 to $7, right? All of these things didn't warn anybody about that. Instead, he tried to pretend, here's the problem. It's not that people are going to make more money. No, that's not it. No, we just need to make things cost less, Jason. That's it. See?
Right. No, and Joe, the speech. Let me say something. I don't think what we're showing in Ukraine is what's happening. I really don't. I watch. Here's what was shocking to me, and on the next segment we'll talk a little bit more about this. But I don't know if the war that they're reporting is the war that's going on there. I don't think so. I think there's some really weird stuff going on. And I was watching the speech from CBS News. I have this weird. One of those digital antennas you have to plug into the TV. I can't get a regular CBS, NBC. I'm not signed up to television service, so I use that digital antenna. So, and the only station I can get in, reliably is CBS. So before this president went on, Joe, and until this morning, I didn't get anybody else that was reporting this. So I finally got it backed up by a couple other news sources now. But CBS News reported right before the speech went on, the Pentagon has briefed Congress that this war, in their estimation, will be 10 to 20 years long. That is what they're saying. And now I found a news source at MSN. I'm looking at the mass media, and they're saying the same thing. A U.S. official tells CBS News that this can be a 10 to 20-year quagmire war in Ukraine. How about that, Joe? That's what was said. That was more important than anything Biden said yesterday.
Yeah, this would be, I guess, Ukraine will be the new Afghanistan. Right, is the way we look at it. But when we get back, we're just going to make things cost less. Yes, we're going to talk about that and what that really means for what's coming. Patriot Radio News Hour. Don't touch that dial. 800-951-0592. And I will tell you, Jay Powell is testifying in front of Congress today. He's got to do that twice a year. Everybody that bought yesterday, congratulations. For those of you that were smart enough to. Those of you that didn't, you missed. Sorry. And as I listened to Jay Powell, he's still talking, but I've listened to enough of it this morning that we are in big trouble. Big trouble. When I turned off the Biden speech last night, I said to my wife, because I just couldn't take anymore, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe. Really? We waited all this time, right? Because, let's face it, the State of the Union address should have been a month ago. For that performance? He brought up insulin. One of the things that we can make a call, and all the little props, they had the little boy there, which is fine, I guess. I don't like it. I don't like the props. I don't know when that became a thing, and maybe it's always been a thing, but it's really unnecessary. But what was so funny is Donald Trump already did that, and then the Biden administration took it away. Oh, now we're going to bring it back. We're going to have fight inflation by building things in America. I got news for everybody. That actually is going to make it cost more. Sorry, there's a reason these companies didn't build stuff here to begin with. Why? Well, because we can pay the Mexicans a lot less. It's all a bunch of nonsense. But then he just kept talking about, we're just going to make things cost less. We're going to make healthcare cost less. Wait a minute. Didn't we get this free? And on the insulin part, here's one of the other things I thought of. Wasn't Obamacare supposed to take care of that, Jason? Didn't my healthcare go from $250 a month to $1,100 a month so people can get cheap insulin? Didn't we already do that?
Yeah, I was waiting for him to jump into Obamacare. He didn't go that far, Joe. And the other thing is you say, well, we waited a month. Well, a month ago there was no Ukraine war. They had, that's why I say this thing is rigged. He had to have something to talk tough about. So let's just push it back a month because we have this Ukraine war all loaded and ready, but it won't start until February or late in February. So let's just back that speech up a month, Joe. That's what I think happens.
And then of course we had the next one that he's talking about. Oh, we're going to make child care.
Yeah,
we're just going to make it cost less.
It's magic.
How are we going to do that? Gee, I wonder. And it's so funny. Of course, what he meant was, what? Hey, I'm just going to give you money. And again, it is the absolute ignorance of what inflation really is. If you actually cared about inflation, we would be all over the central bank right now. We'd be making plans to get rid of it. No more printing money out of thin air. This is, and I hate to tell you, do you know when oil prices are going to stop rising? I'm going to tell you. Do you want to know when home prices are going to stop rising? I'm going to tell you that too. You want to know when food prices are going to stop? I'm going to tell you that as well. It's simple. It's called demand destruction. Period. Let me put it another way. Recession, depression, whatever, great recession, whatever label you want to slap on it. That's the only way. You are not going to combat inflation by giving away money. It's how we got it to begin with. We're going to make things cost less. No, didn't say how he's going to make it cost less. And guess what? Somehow, not only are we going to make things cost less, here's the best part. It's going to lower the deficit. Okay, interesting. And somehow the people that we're going to give less to, whether it be healthcare providers, child care providers, energy provider, whatever it may be, they're going to be fine. Don't worry. Yeah, they're still going to have great profits. Everything's going to be one rate. It's just going to magically cost less. Literally, Joe Biden went out. He found Jack. He bought the magic beans, and he's going to plant them in the ground, and things are going to magically cost less. This was their plan? This was their brilliance? Do you not? And I don't. You know what? I'm going to stop calling him President Clown. He deserves respect. And I'm going to stop doing, but it's really hard to stop doing it when you hear. I mean, it was like that movie. Eric used to talk about the movie Idiocracy, and let me tell you right now, it's a dumb movie, which is why I like it. I like dumb movies. And President Camacho was giving his State of the Union address, and he was talking about there was no burrito coverings, right? There was no guacamole and no lettuce and none of that because they didn't know how to grow crops anymore. Because we had been so dumbed down. And last night exemplified, you should be insulted, you should be disgusted. You should be horrified. Because obviously the man is absolutely clueless. And to Jason's point, someone here, say this. Right? Say this. Right? Just come out there. Oh, yeah, don't worry. It's going to be great. He should have been out there warning people. He should have been attacking Jay Powell. Matter of fact, he should have said, you know what? Screw his renomination. He's out. I listened to Jay Powell today, Jason. It's just as bad.
I think I know what he couldn't say, but I think I know what their plan is, Joe, because he did say there will not be one penny of new taxes. So he did say this, except for he wants, of course, to take from we got to take from $400,000 or more. You need to pay your fair share. But what he also said, Joe, what I was listening to is I'm going to give you free stuff. But he didn't, he's like, he can't say this out loud. He's going to take it from the middle class and the business class and give it to the poor. And from what I can tell, hey, the Fed is going to start printing a bunch of money later this year, a ton. And we're just gonna let inflation run like crazy because he didn't really touch inflation that hard. He didn't really talk about it. He's going to let inflation run, Joe, and they're going to collect it from the business and the middle class and just give it to the poor to just to keep the lower end of society happy that can't pay for this inflation, Joe.
Yeah, but the poor aren't getting anything.
Oh well, he's going to give them more free money, Joe. When things get bad, you watch.
This is the problem. All the free money he gives them just drives up all the costs to where they end up poorer than when they started it all.
That won't stop them from trying, though.
And we're watching this, and let me just give you some of the highlights of what Jay Powell's, because really what Jay Powell's talking about today, more important, believe it or not, right? Because Joe Biden, none of this stuff, and I love this. Listen, I want everybody to understand, do you know why we pay more for drugs? Because people really don't know. Do you know why? The answer is very simple. Because Big Pharma bought our elected officials. They had agreed decades ago. I'm talking like 80s ago. Hey, you let us charge you more. We'll charge less to the poor countries. Because you got to remember, right now, think about what's going on. There's starving people in Africa and Sally Struthers, for less than a cup of coffee a day, right? And all this stuff, right? We got to. They always like to do that stuff, right? All these other poor people out there, like we don't have poor people. And they said, hey, that way you guys can fund everything. You can fund all the new drugs, all the research, all the development. Listen, they've been on it, the Democrats and the Republicans. And again, you know what's so funny? How long have they been saying we're going to get these cheaper drugs? How long has it been? I thought, once again, wasn't Obamacare supposed to do? Didn't George Bush, didn't he come out and say, didn't he do some cheap drug thing that we paid hundreds of billions of dollars for? Yeah, they've all said it. Here's the bottom line. None of them will vote for it. Not one of them. We should pay the cheapest. Let's face it, here at Patriot, who pays the cheapest price? The guy with the most money pays the cheapest because he's going to buy more. We just did it yesterday. You got a volume discount. Everybody understands that. Who buys more drugs than any country in the world by like a factor of 10? You guessed it, right here. So really, logically, we should pay less than anybody. Instead, we pay more on purpose. It's all done on purpose. It's all just a bunch of lies. And listen, it's not just Joe Biden lying. The Republicans lie all the time. That's all they do. That whole speech was a lie. Right? If he was Pinocchio, all of us right now would be walking around with an eye patch for having watched it. And now, Jay Powell's turn. They're going to hike rates in March. That's a given. By the way, not a 50 basis point hike, which is so incredibly, isn't it sad? Hey, we really don't want to fight inflation. I mean, right, think about this right now. They admitted to, well, I don't even know what the number is right now, 7-8%, but we just got another number last week. It's even higher yet, right? This number is going to be astronomical. Nah, we're going to go a whopping whole quarter of a point. I know. Whoa, calm it down. Right? This is how weak the banks are. Do you know why the stock market got crushed the last 2 days? The banks were getting hammered. J.P. Morgan down 10% in 2 days. Why? Because they know they're weak. But now just a quarter of a point. Now, the Ukraine war, it makes the U.S. economy uncertain. It doesn't make it uncertain. We know. Right? Listen, the Biden administration, right before the speech, and Jason's right, came out and said, this thing's going to go for 10, maybe 20 years.
Yep.
Why? Because they wanted to, right? Right, Jason?
Well, it feeds into Biden, what he was saying, Joe. So I know that a lot of what it seems like he was saying was lies, but if you go from their point of view, he said, hey, we're going to start manufacturing from America. We're going to have American-made. Well, in one way, he's going to be right. Hey, how do we cut the deficits? Well, you have a 10 or 20-year war in Ukraine, and we can manufacture a whole lot of weapons, and we can start ramping up military spending. So I mean, you almost got to read what because he can't just say that. Hey, we're gonna sell weapons for 10 years. That's gonna help our GDP. You can't say that out. But war is gonna be great for the GDP, Joe. It really is. He's gonna try to catch up to inflation by having a 10-year war. I mean, he can't say that out loud, Joe. But that's what he's doing. That's why that was shocking. When's the last time a war started? And at the very beginning of the war, someone's like, well, this looks like 20 years. No one ever says there's going to be a war for 20 years. No one said Afghanistan was going to be 20 years. Not even 10 years ago did they say it was going to be 20 years. But they're saying it out loud, Joe. And the stuff that I'm learning about what's going on in Ukraine, it's shocking. It really is kind of a fake war. It's really weird. You know, a fact like this, Joe, the Russians have control of the internet in Ukraine. The Ukrainians run the Russian internet service. And all through this entire time, the first thing you do when you invade is you shut off their communications. And guess what? They're not shutting off Ukrainian communications. They want everyone to post and show all kinds of stuff. Isn't that weird, Joe? Weird stuff going on, man. I think they want to just have a big, long war and spend a lot of money down a big, dark, black hole, Joe. The middle class and the business class, get ready. You're going to lose everything you got. That's what I think they're going to do. Give it all to the poor, and all there'll be is the rich and the poor left.
800-951-0592. Little bit of a sell-off today in gold and silver. And I say a little bit because it's paper. Nobody really watched. You know, it's kind of sad. It's almost like the paper markets have become irrelevant in so many things. But silver holding $25, gold holding $19.20. The Dow's up like 500 points today. You know, the big reason they're saying, oh, it was oversold. What does that mean? What does that mean, oversold? What are you talking about, oversold? It's overpriced, not oversold. Right? And think about the nonsense out of Jay Powell's mouth today. Talking about that they're going to start this balance sheet reduction, and right after they've got rate lift on Jason, they're sticking to their script. I can't even tell you how many times. Well, we think inflation is going to improve over time.
I think there's a whole lot of oversolding to go, Joe.
Yeah, right. I mean, what? Like I was watching yesterday, and I got home a little early. And I turned on the stock channel because I want to hear what they're saying. And they were talking about Salesforce, which I don't know. I guess they provide jobs. I don't even know what they do exactly, but neither here nor there. They're talking about whether or not it was a good buy. And they had just released earnings, and thankfully one of the people was like, well, yeah, because they beat earnings. Thankfully, one of the people there was like, well, yeah, they beat, but everyone forgets they lowered earnings 3 weeks ago, right? The classic, hey, we're going to lower it so we can beat it, 3 weeks later, right? So he's like, really, technically not so good. And then they start talking. The company trades at like 54 times earnings. And I'm just like, which essentially tells you it's so overpriced, right? 54 times earnings. And remember, a lot of this run up was based on the fact that interest rates were zero, so they could trade. They can trade at a higher multiple, which Jim Cramer at least is warning people, hey, listen, you better only own stocks that actually make money. Right? Because if you're buying all these stocks with these super high PE ratios, you're in for a world of hurt. And here's the problem. The whole stock market has these inflated PE ratios, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I mean, I was looking at where we're at with this whole thing, this emergency that we're looking at. And I'm kind of thinking 9/11. What did gold do from the beginning of the War on Terror, 2001, till, let's say, just a year or two after the implosion of the housing market. I mean, I think they're going to attempt to try to do the same thing with the markets, Joe, and gold just kept going up all the time through this War on Terror. We got a 10-year or 20-year war coming, Joe. Man, I get the feeling that gold is going to be on a long bull run here as they have nowhere to go. You know, Jay Powell, he's an idiot. He has nothing intelligent to say because there's no intelligent play here.
I think that's the biggest problem. Maybe that's what it is. You know what? That for whatever reason, that comment made me feel better. You just made me feel better. Said, hold on, Joe. The reason why they sound so stupid,
they can't say it truthfully,
because, right? There's no other answer to give. Because what can Jay Powell, I guess, really say? What do you want him to say? Well, in fairness, I should raise interest point. We should raise them a full point. And by the way, another full point. We're going to raise it a full point every meeting for the next 7 meetings. We're going to start the balance sheet runoff starts right now. Right? And of course, the problem with that would be what would happen. The Dow would be down 5,000 points.
What happened in Russia when they took it from 9.5% to 20%? Right?
Right.
One day. They don't want to do that, Joe.
Where do you really honestly think, if you're just listening here today, and I know people are really nervous again, and a lot of people, when they get nervous, right, they don't do anything.
Yep, they freeze.
And here's what I'm going to tell everybody: trust your instincts. Trust your instincts. There's no way out of this. You know, you can't, you know, the old saying, oh, I want my cake and I want to eat it too, right? You can't have it both ways. We're either going to fight inflation, which they create. Listen, Jay Powell created it. And the answer is, well, why? Why would he do this? Well, the answer was simple. He didn't want the banks to collapse. See, because we never fixed too big to fail. They didn't fix it. Trust your instincts. What was the problem? What did they tell us the problem was? Oh, they were too big. There was, you know, people don't realize this. There was laws in place that prevented banks from being too big. They got rid of those laws in the 90s. Isn't that shocking? Isn't that amazing? Oh, let's see. They changed the inflation calculations in the 90s. They got rid of all these laws about allowing these banks to be too big in the 90s. I mean, everybody, you know, that's been in the Valley for more than 20 years. Remember Valley National Bank? Remember? That was a big bank here. And then, of course, it got bought out right before the Diamondbacks came. Bank One, right? Now, I don't even know what they're all gone. They've been gobbled up and gobbled up and gobbled up and gobbled up, and all are we left with these massive institutions that now pose systemic risk.
Joe, they got rid of the laws in the 1990s, and they had a war on terror in 2001. Pretty interesting timing there.
And then I ask you, so they got way too big, these derivatives, these dark pools, these things that none of us really know anything about, that they created. Say, see, now it's so much safer. Of course, it wasn't any safer. That's why we don't have regional housing markets anymore. We don't have regional job markets anymore. It's all because they just turned it all into one big, massive pile of mush. So, if we were truly safer, these banks would have been broken back up. Period. You know what? You really want prosperity? Break them all up. Break up all these companies.
The banks are bigger because
think about how many more CEOs we're going to need, how many more middle managers we're going to need, right? I mean, break them all back up. Then we can be safe. Instead, what did they do? They actually made them even bigger. We're actually more at risk, not less. That's why he kept printing the money. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. Today's special U.S. $5 Liberties. $635. That's $10 off today. It's incredible what things are going to start costing. I will not be shocked. I wouldn't even surprise me in the least to see $5 Liberties trading near $1,000 a piece before the end of the year. Would not shock me at all. This is how dangerous a situation we're in right now. Let me give you an example. You know, we have these sanctions on the Iranians, right? You know, and there's been big talk last few weeks about reaching a new agreement. You know, Trump took us out because, let's face it, the Iranians weren't honoring the agreement anyway, so he took it out and said, hey, no more oil exports for you. And about a month ago, I let everyone know, hey, listen, by the way, China's buying Iranian oil, and a lot of it. Well, Zero Hedge broke another story, and actually they didn't break it. They're just Reuters is the one who's been tracking ships, oil ships, into China. It said that the Chinese are now buying 700,000 barrels of crude oil a day from Iran. Now, why is that number important? Well, first of all, it's supposed to be zero. Okay, 700,000 barrels a day. So obviously we know China's doing it, right? But we don't care because, well, oil's really expensive. And thank God they're doing it, because could you imagine how much more expensive it would be if they had to buy 700,000 barrels of oil a day from somebody else? But here's why I bring it up. Two reasons. Before the sanctions, by the way, that was in 2017. And I'm sorry, 2018 is when Trump reimposed the sanctions. China was buying 623,000 barrels of Iranian oil a day. So they're actually buying more now than they were before. And by the way, they're saying China expects to have that number jump to 780,000 barrels a day. But here's what's important, two things. Number one, China's buying it at a huge discount. Right? Same thing with Russian oil right now. Right? The Chinese are like, yeah, well, don't worry. We're going to buy it. Now, nobody else wants to buy it. The Chinese will buy it for $20, $30 a barrel less. Matter of fact, the number they used in this article, they are paying $77 for this Iranian oil. And I only bring this up because the realities are we're going to face, and of course Europe even worse than us, these huge consequences of these actions. But at the end of the day, Jason, it is very, very apparent that China is able to do whatever the hell China wants.
Yeah, China and Russia entered into a contract for oil recently, and
just a week and a half ago.
And they're going to do it in euros. It's going to be traded in euros. The oil from Russia to China. After the conflict started, they quintupled their order. I think yesterday, 5 times more now. Done in euros. So that tells you something. Russia.
Yeah, and if they don't do it in euros, if the European Union tries to block it, you know they'll just go to the renminbi or whatever else it may be.
Yep.
They're going to get it done.
Right, and part of this going so high, going 5 times the original contract order, it very well can be that this gas and oil that's pumping into Germany and into Europe is going to start heading south into China. So that's what it looks like, Joe.
Which would just make the problem even that much worse. And of course, we're sitting here. I feel fortunate that crude oil has come down a little bit. It's only up like $4 right now at 107. It's been as high as $112. Unleaded gas. It's just incredible. We're talking 50, 60 cents higher than what it was on Friday. Can you imagine in another 10 days that the price of gasoline jumps 50 cents in a day, in a week? I mean, this could absolutely happen. And, of course, what's going to happen, Jay Powell? Idiot. Gee, people are going to buy less gas. It's going to happen. Listen, the Atlanta Federal Reserve, you know what they say GDP is going to be for the first quarter? They just updated it on Monday. Do you have a guess, Jason? I don't know that you saw the numbers, so I'll ask, do you know what Atlanta says, what GDP, first quarter GDP is going to be in the U.S. right now?
No, I didn't see that.
Zero.
Uh-oh.
Zero. It actually was at 1/10 before that. It actually went even worse. And I only point this out. So think about this. So we're going to be raising rates. As, you know, inflation soaring, the economy is slowing, and slowing significantly. And you're going to run off the balance sheet, and you're going to lower the cost of everything, and we're not going to blow up the debt, right? I mean, Jason, it's a fairy tale.
It is, Joe. It is. So they're going to have to find someone to blame all this catastrophe on. And boy, what a war is so good for blaming people. And I guess it's all going to be Russia's fault. I think every month that goes by, Joe, it's all Russia's fault. It's all Russia's fault. And it's, the best way to try to get things to fix, Joe, is for your fiat currencies, find a big black hole to throw it into, and then a war is great for that, Joe. I think that's a play.
How do you not blame the central bank? Start a war and blame the Russians. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Final segment here this morning. If you paid attention at all to that ridiculous speech last night, then you already know that you need to call, get your house in order, get your gold in order. U.S. $5 liberties today, where, a lot of you out there, I'm getting emails saying, hey, you got anything smaller? Yesterday we ran those 20s at $2,195, $2,195. I know, hey, not everybody has that kind of money laying around. $5 liberties today, $635 at 800-951-0592. And Jason, as we really just sit here and really understand what it is that you're really being told, truthfully, what you're really being told is things are going to get so much worse, to the fact that we just had to come out, and that was utter nonsense last night.
Absolutely, Joe.
It was nonsense. It was nonsense. Jay Powell this morning, he's kidding himself. We're going to raise rate 10 times and shrink the balance sheet. No, they're not doing any of that. Here's what's going to happen, and I've already told you. Demand destruction. It's a nice way of saying, I think this is going to be the worst of the depressions. They called the financial crisis, they called it what did they call it? A super recession, a super recession. They didn't want to call it a Great Depression, right? They didn't want to call it that. What we've got coming, so much worse than that. But that's how we're going to get the digital currency. And to Jason's point, it'll be the Russians' fault, right? That's a good one. And who likes the Russians? No one's like the Russians, right? I mean, it has to be. It's the only thing that actually makes any sense. And like I said, Jason kind of made me feel a little better. Hey, Joe, they got to tell you nonsense, because they can't say what I just said.
Yeah, they can't cause a panic by giving you the truth.
They can't say that.
They don't want to be blamed for causing a panic by giving you truth.
Right. Hey, listen, the reason why we have the inflation is because they never fixed it. Don't you get it yet?
inflation's been bad for a while. As far as I'm concerned, Joe, we shouldn't have 2-3% inflation every single year for decades on end. That's been the plan.
Smart.
Yeah,
they were so smart. They created this fake 2% number. Of course, after they already had made it to where I don't know. Sometimes I think we give them too much credit for how smart they are. I don't think in their wildest dream that they could really get inflation to be this bad, because they don't actually count inflation anymore. This is how bad it really is, but this is how much money they've created. So much more money than we ever knew possible, because they didn't want to fix it. They didn't want to admit they were wrong. They didn't want to admit they had to break up these banks, that they screwed it up. And, of course, really, here's ultimately, at the end of the day, the real travesty of it all. The solution is getting rid of the central bank. Our founding fathers knew that. They knew it from day one. It was true then, and it's still true today. 800-951-0592. God bless everybody.